Hey everybody, it's your host Dan coming at you with installment number 3 out of 120. Can't believe I'm actually doing this, but I made it this far. So, what I'm doing here is everybody knows Akira, right? Like if you made it this far to find this small a channel, you probably already know what Akira is. So, what I'm looking at here is the different ways it was serialized, focusing primarily on the chapters that appeared in the 120 installments in Young Magazine. Now, I'm not a millionaire. I have a few Young magazines, but I by no means have a complete run of Young magazines. But I do have a bunch of other stuff, and I have notes from a very useful Japanese website that I need to track down the URL of again so that I can share it with everybody who's following along at home. Anyway, this guy laid out what pages equal what installment in Young Magazine. And I started reinserting the title pages that were cut from the trade paperback version. This version, we looked at the Japanese version of that in the first episode. And today I'm going to shake it up a little bit, and I'm going to use the North American colorized version. So, uh, I don't know. Maybe that'll get me into some hot water, whatever. We will look over at this periodically because there's some stuff with the ink line that I think is going to be a lot easier to show off using this book. But I'm going to put this on the side, and don't worry about it. I haven't forgotten about William Steig. I'm going to finish that tonight. So anyway, we're on chapter 3. So let's see. So this was the cover of chapter 3. Um, not too different from the cover of chapter 2, but I feel like the end of chapter 3 is where he really hits his groove, and there's already some classic moments happening this early in the series, and it only gets better as it goes on. So yeah, so this is what you would have seen in Young Magazine, except it would have been on very poor quality newsprint paper, and the entire border is usually covered in like weird little advertising messages, uh, and Otomo would leave a little cryptic message with each installment in Young Magazine. I forgot to go over these in the last two. So we're only 3 episodes in, so I'll just read them all off. So the first episode, his note was Jiu wo whatever ni. My apologies, because I probably butchered that. Which I produced and directed, will be shown for the first time at Kuniya Hall starting December 20th. So just announcing a movie he made was going to be shown somewhere. I'm not sure what that translates to. I don't think it's Farewell to Weapons. I should look into that. So episode 2, I hooked up the UHF antenna to watch TV Kanagawa. I was surprised how interesting it is. It's like that fake Michael Jordan Twitter. Like there's a lot of just kind of just odd statements in these. I've gone and caught a cold and my throat really hurts, so I had to buy a humidifier. Cough. But he was still drawing 40 pages a month, so I don't know that he really took any days off. Uh, I like this more than I like this. I think anytime he's working with these like pooled blacks, like I think Paul Pope took a lot from this kind of mode that Otomo has. Like if you look at THB or 100% or whatever, there's a lot of shading that's done in these kind of jagged, predominantly black patterns like that. But anyway, uh, let's hop into chapter 3 of Akira. And I would say this is kind of where stuff really gets cooking. So let me find the beginning. Let's see. Okay, so this is, and also I want to talk about, so one of the things that's very different, I think, looking at it with the page titles reinserted, and also just kind of seeing how it was laid out in the Young magazines. Usually, pretty much every Young magazine or clipping that I've ever bought, you'll have title page. Well, actually, no, the title page can be here or here in terms of the flip. Although I think most of the time it's here, so it kind of, if you take it out of the book, because a lot of people did that, and I'll be showing you a few of those as we go along. Uh, they look like little comic books because the last page of a given installment is always on this side of the flip. And so putting it into a paperback kind of changes that. That's not specific to the North American edition, that's across all of them. So usually it works. Sometimes it's like 50-50 which one works better, and I can see why he chose to put the title pages in a different book. And I think with the 35th anniversary edition box set with the hardcovers that comes with the Akira Club, like, you know, that's probably the definitive version, but I have so many versions of this around my house, and I really like Steve Olive's coloring. I think the translation is very good, and a lot of care and time was put into this edition, especially given that it was kind of a gamble on, you know, comics from Japan were not really a big thing in the US when Marvel published this. Anyway, let's look at chapter 3. So here's your like sort of splash page. He loves splitting pages into thirds. And okay, one thing I will say about the Marvel editions is that unless you get those really expensive graffiti designs hardcovers, uh they don't lay flat very well, so they don't like to play nice with me making videos. So I hope my hand's looking good today. So Kay sees him, sees the Kaneda and Yamagata and Kai running into Takashi. Um, he's the first Esper that we meet, but there's more of them. Takashi feels like he's being threatened, and he just makes this weird face. This is a very, I think this is the strongest like first page we've seen so far, and we get our first psychic explosion of Akira, or well, not really our first one. This is the one for me, at least when I'm reading this, where it's like the full enormity of the concept really sets in, and Otomo sells the shit out of it. Like the broken glass, you got them looking like, what the fuck's going on? Kay kind of knows what's going on, but and yeah, they're all just bracing themselves from this broken glass. I don't know that Olaf really quite figured out the coloring at this point, and we'll go back to this version probably a few times while we're doing this. just because I have all of it, and I think there's some really interesting choices made both in how it was brought over, the coloring choices, the design choice, because this is on pretty nice paper. This was not a cheap comic book when it came out. You know, like it was 64-page issues that were the equivalent of probably like $10 a pop, adjusted for inflation. They really rolled out the red carpet for this. And Otomo was overseeing it. And weirdly enough, I think the color actually gets better when Otomo is just kind of like, "You're doing good stuff, Steve. Just finish it yourself. I have faith." Um, and I have a very special surprise to show you guys at a certain point uh, when we get there regarding Steve Olive's coloring. But yeah, this cascading panel effect is nice. It kind of destabilizes the scene. Um, I'm not sure what side of the page flip this would have been on. I mean, presumably he Otomo is considering the page flips when he's laying it, because this is laid out in terms of like what page is on the left and on the right. It's laid out the same as the Dark Horse, same as the Kodansha one. Uh, yeah, great water tower, and it's these little details that just really sell this. So the overhead shot, that's genius with the triangles. Your eyes kind of like rolling like a marble down that picture, right? And he adds all these kind of vine looking uh, neon signs and pipes and stuff to the outside of the building. And I think, you know, that's a thing that he would do. That is a kind of a Mobius move, like the sort of industrial mandala designs that just sort of emerge. Um, Honestly, Flom, why not? It's a comic book explosion. It doesn't look bad. This was the first version of Akira that I read, and I loved it when I read it. You know, it's not the purest version, but I will defend this version of Akira. Another great explosion page. Um, this is one of very few times he kind of uses almost a rounded off panel edge on the top here. I think it really helps to sell the explosion. This feels a little like with the redone lettering, it kind of feels like Will Eisner's Spirit comics a little. But I think this is strong enough where, you know, it works. We get our first of a few military ships. And we have our introduction to the Colonel. And yeah, he looks much younger than he does by the end of the book. He's got some wild hair there and a big old mustache. I hope that shows up on camera. Let me see if I can show that in the black and white, because I think the mustache does look better in the black and white. And I think making this like the flat red, maybe. I don't think that's a coloring choice that Olaf would have made later on. Okay, here we go. So here's our Dark Horse version. And yeah, I think this definitely looks better in the black and white in the early pages, for sure. And but it's nice to have a few versions. Okay, so big thing happens. The the colonel says something very ominous. It's been over 30 hours since he escaped. Soon he'll be at critical. What is critical? Well, we're about to find out. We go back to the biker gang. Um, they're on the run. Uh, Yamagata is very funny. It's unfortunately he's not in a lot of this, but being a JD is a real pain in the ass. I don't know that I've ever seen JD as an abbreviation for juvenile delinquent before, but I'll take it. Uh, there's some more running. This is like some like Tezuka running. I feel, or it's not the way that he would draw running. I think later in this series. Uh, like this panel in particular, and maybe I'll put a finger on this a bit better as we go through here. I don't feel like this is a panel he would draw in a later sequence. Um, every street scene, I've contemplated just like taking digital scans and just cutting out only the panels with no people in them, basically, and making like a little zine out of it. Maybe I'll do that at some point. One thing Olaf gets right is that like light blue for the espers with the white hair. That looks great. The rest of it he kind of needs to nail down a little bit though. But Otomo did want this color English flipped. Like that was his decision when this came out. Not that I think it was just presumed it was going to be flipped, but uh, yeah, we have some very detailed bystanders. He doesn't really cut corners there. He does love this effect of the split panel with the payoff in this bigger third panel. So like boom, boom, boom. Sometimes we'll do this like a shot, reverse shot, and then payoff. And yeah, like here you get closer, closer, and then pulling way back. These are just great. By like I'd read a comic book about these people, but we never see them again. There's a lot of like casted extras, so to speak, in these comics, and that helps build the scope and scale of the world. And he's still running after Kay. I don't know. He must not have seen a lady in a while. It's a little different in the movie where they just kind of like the movie. Yeah, they add some female characters that are like hanging out with the gang at the beginning, and the way they design them kind of feels a little bit like Grease to me. I think that's one thing the comic did better. Just trim the fat. You know, he doesn't need to have some other girlfriend before he meets Kay. There is that awkward thing with the school nurse later on, but we'll get to that when we get to that. And Ryu tracks down Takashi, says that he's going to free him from the military installation, and we have the first meeting of Kaneda and Ryu, and Ryu has a gun, and he just wants to get the hell out of there. He does not want to deal with this spunky kid. Another neat little like a house-shaped panel with the other two. He's doing some wild shit. Ryu's sick of it, pulls a gun on Kaneda. Another close up, reverse shot, reverse. Like, there's a lot more kind of Uh, I feel like there's a lot more leeway with a shot reverse shot in a comic book than there is in a movie. Um, well, maybe not. He thinks of ways to frame it where it's never simply just like the exact shot repeated twice with the same head. And, that's always a good choice. That's if you're drawing at home, do that. But, yeah, the police show up. There's a chase. And we have the last page of this chapter. Kaneda tries to run off, finds a dead end, and the security guards catch up with Kay, and she says, "Stop, don't." And so, why am I holding my hand over one of these pages? First, I want to mention this is another incredible shading effect here on in the railway here when Kay's standing with the gun. We have Kaneda very small in the back. I think Kaneda is actually easier to make out here than in the black and white version. But this, like, this shadow pattern on the ground is so intricate. It's kind of crazy. And so the reason I'm holding my hand over this page is in the original serialization, this is the last page. So this would be a flip. So this is supposed to be a reveal. Since we made it this far, I presume if you're willing to watch 120 videos about Akira, you've probably read this before. So I feel like this is one place where this messes up. In most of the collected versions, this should be a flip page. This is such a strong payoff. This is also like possibly my favorite first page of any of the chapters. Anyway, hopefully you yeah, one last thing. So there's a last page cliffhanger panel. This big chunky third, like it's taken up like 40%, but it's a third of the page in terms of like row 1, row 2, row 3. This is usually the easiest way to figure out where did the original chapters end. He uses this a lot. It's extremely effective, and it feels right every time. And well, we'll see. I don't know. I haven't looked at it this closely before, but we're off to a good start so far. 40 pages a month. This is so much drawing. Anyway, I'm Dan. I run Silver Factory Books and Records, a record book, comic, CD, tape, you name it, store in sunny, scenic Ballston Spa, New York. The store, it's been said that Silver Factory Books and Records is both good for health and bad for education. You want to find out if that's true? Well, you'll have to come make a visit. We're open Wednesday to Sunday, and I'll be back again with another installment probably in a day or two. So, till then, keep reading comics.